I had the pleasure today of speaking with Milo Yiannopoulos about fasting. He believes that this practice saved his life. I think he's right. Enjoy our conversation, the charm of his accent, his wit, and his contrarian nature. Milo, it was a pleasure. Well, no, that's great. So let me pivot here. So I think everything you're saying, it's so funny that everything you're saying, I actually agree with, but I guess I would just partition much of what you're saying. The source, I would say that goes for monasteries and bishops. But with that said, I mean, I get your point, and what you say, I think is very rational, makes sense. So let me ask you this about fasting. So this is funny. I actually talked to a
Mhm.
Roman Catholic a few weeks ago, or maybe it was 2 months ago. And
This is a really peculiar blend of topics that you have.
it is. It is. No problem. No problem.
Have you ever had a natural conversation, or does everyone have like half an hour through? Let's talk about not eating. It's a very strange. It's a very strange, incongruous little cluster of things you care about. It's odd.
Well,
You're odd.
it's a leap. It's shots taken and accepted. I
Did you
I
say
will
you're a
say
doctor?
I work in the
Yeah,
emergency room.
that's why, you see, because
Okay.
all doctors have like two or three totally unrelated hobbies or obsessions, and have nothing to do with each other, and don't go together, and none of the friends like each other from those things. Yeah, every doctor has this. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Let's
Well,
talk about not
yeah.
eating.
So let me say, a few months ago, I talked to a Roman Catholic, and he was discovering fasting because largely in the West, I would say, is that it has been lost. Now, these are not my words; these are his. And what he was
No,
discovering
that's
was
no,
that
that's true.
in the early centuries of the church, they fasted on Wednesdays and Fridays. They fasted before Lent. They fasted before Christmas. They were fast over the summer. They became pescatarians or even vegans. And what I had to tell him was, hey, man, that actually is still being practiced in the Orthodox Church even today. With that said, though, what I did as a doctor is I tried to optimize those fasting parameters to get people real return on investment in terms of these parameters. And interestingly, when you distill these best practices, they are found in monasteries. Like I said before, there's a lot of good things in
You make it
monasteries.
you make it sound so romantic.
It is. It is.
Optimizing for parameters. I've never heard anybody suck the joy out of religion like that before. My God, optimizing for parameters. What is wrong with you? As a Latin Mass Catholic, I do a lot more fasting than other Catholics. The majority of
I don't know
Catholic
if that's
churches,
true.
basically.
I think it's the 25% of you that's still Orthodox down and deep, and you just love the
So,
asceticism.
no,
You love
no,
it.
no.
You love it,
The only thing Greek
Yiannopoulos.
about
You love it,
the only
Yiannopoulos.
thing the only thing Greek about me is my rapidly expanding waistline. I hit 35, and I've started to look like a kebab shop owner. There's
You know
nothing I
what?
can do about it.
We are the same age. We are the same age. We are both born in '84. You're 2 months older
Still
than me. I was
40.
I was a
Yep.
December baby,
Yep.
and I just hit the halfway mark a few weeks ago.
hmm
Happy birthday,
So
belated to
you
you.
know. So you know. Oh, happy birthday to you. So
I'm
you know.
fighting it, man.
It's basically impossible.
No, I'll tell you though. I do believe that's okay. So just get this. Hear this 30-second, 45-second monologue. Okay. So this is where I think fasting comes in as
That's
God's greatest gift.
that's his really subtle way of saying I keep interrupting.
No, 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 no. You're fine. We're echoing each other. I'll say this: there is a panacea. There is a salve for suffering, and suffering is what I see every day in the ER. And what I have found by studying the practices of fasting in the best parts of the world, aka monasteries of Mount Athos in Greece, where not only do we study what they eat and how much they eat, but when they eat. They are establishing certain optimized parameters for fasting that gives them and ensures them incredible lifespan and a high quality of life. And what I basically found was that if you eat a certain number of hours a day, let's call it intermittent fasting, if you eat
Mhm.
plant-based protein, and if you just simply walk, what happens is the body turns on so many metabolic and physiological processes for healing that I really believe when they say that 80-90% of all disease is completely preventable, which is true, 80,
Yes.
90% of disease can be completely ameliorated or eliminated by fasting. And it's such a
I will.
meek
I will tell you
Christian practice.
when I
Yeah.
fast and walk for 2 hours a day, I lose 30 pounds like that. And my skin returns to like to glowing. My eyes start looking deeper and shiny. Like I don't get sick. It is definitely true that the
Tell me
way
about your
that
fasting. What kind of things do you do? Like, give me a little bit more detail.
I'm like a binger as a personality, like
Right.
as a person. So I do like boom and bust stuff. So I'll like eat like a pig. I'm not trying to like expand my lifestyle. Like I'm ready to die. I'm happy to be with Jesus. I'm ready to go. So I'm not trying to like live longer or anything.
Don't worry, Milo. You're here to stay. Don't worry. You're fine.
No. I'm praying for. I'm praying. I if I could, I would spend all my time in German Christmas markets, just hoping for the jihadi truck. But I would. No, I eat like a pig 3 weeks of the month, and then I do as close as I can for 7 days water only,
Okay.
once a month,
Okay.
which gives me back the clarity of thought that I lose from all of the processed food and the alcohol and everything else over the other 3 weeks. Because you start to feel heavy in the mind and in the body,
Yes.
and you start to feel gloopy and sluggish. And gray and you like start to turn into like, have you seen Blade, that the vampire movie, like the Pearl,
Yep.
the record keeper? You start to feel like
We're
that.
millennials. I've seen it. Yes.
Of course you have, yeah. And so going as far as I can to 7, water only, just kind of like refreshes me back to like a human being again. So 'cause
How did you come about arriving at 7 days versus 3 versus 2 weeks? To tell me that thought
well, because
process.
I go like completely insane after 7. So 7 is like I cut myself off at 7.
Mhm.
And so the best is day 3 and 4, when you are over the hunger and you get the energy, the euphoria, the clarity, the cleanliness feeling in the body. You take a shower and you're like, I've never felt so clean. Like I feel amazing. Like you have a bowel movement that is like clean. You know what I mean? Like a nice
Sure.
one. You have a
Sure.
nice one. You feel like that emptied me out. you know like I feel good now. And then day 3 and 4 is great, and then 5 is fine, and then 6,
But
7 I start to go a
you're
bit
lis-
nuts.
you're listening to your body, and you start realizing you're getting diminishing returns at about day 7.
Yeah, and I noticed the cognitive decline because I'm not getting nutrients to like fuel the brain enough, and after about 6 days, there's no KFC left, and so in my bloodstream, so I start to get stupid.
Do you supplement with any electrolytes during that 7 days, or is it just purely water?
No, I do. I have the little the powder packets,
Yep.
they're called liquid IV or whatever it's called,
Yeah. So you're getting some sodium, some magnesium, maybe some
And
potassium.
I do have like a multivitamin, and I have what do I have? I found that if I buy the old people vitamins, the silver vitamins, like the over 50 vitamins, whatever it is about the uh proportions of that, it seems to be better for me when I'm fasting. Like it keeps me alive better with no food. So I eat like the geriatric
Hmm.
the geriatric multivitamins for like like the Centrum seniors, and a few other things. I get it's difficult to hydrate uh at that length of time, because you start the first couple of days and you're good, but then by like day 6 you just don't want to drink any more water.
Hmm.
And so I sometimes I'll get like a Charlie horse or something,
Yeah.
from dehydration by day 6 or 7. Another reason that I'll stop. So sometimes I'll take like a magnesium or something, or whatever. Is it calcium, magnesium, whatever it is? It's just
Somewhere
so there are some supplements going on for sure.
So let me make this point. I think this is interesting. Maybe you can connect with this, but the enteric nervous system is actually bigger in terms of surface area than your brain, and that lines your intestine, your 30 feet of intestine. And
Your
what's
belly
really
brain. I've heard about that.
exactly, and what's really cool about that is there's this upregulation of the sympathetic nervous system when you fast. So literally,
I'm not fasting this week.
right, no worries. Cheez-Its is the way to go. When you fast, you actually get this upregulation of the sympathetic nervous system that releases catecholamines, epinephrine, serotonin, dopamine. And what's so cool about that is when people do cocaine or they do meth, they are actually, no one is, when you're doing cocaine and meth, you are not putting in your body serotonin, dopamine, catecholamines. What you're doing is you're forcing your body to release what's already there. And so
then you recycle and you
and the reason I bring this up is that while you're fasting, literally you are mimicking a stimulated state where you are now more creative, more energetic.
And that's what I mean by like day 3-4. That's what I get day 3-4.
Okay. And it's wild to me that in the universal practice of spirituality, and specifically Christianity, there's this idea of fasting where we can sort of, upregulate our sympathetic nervous system, increase our creativity, increase our introspection, our energy, and kind of get work done. And I find that there's no coincidence that some of the greatest leaders in human history, utilize fasting often. So
it's not just getting work done, is it? I mean, the way that you were just describing it about clarity and it being uplifting,
yes,
it suggests that after a certain period of fasting, would that not suggest also, and I have experienced this myself, that you are in a more receptive place for prayer?
Yes.
That your mind is clear and alert and functional, and also I'm a very fidgety person. Like people think I'm on drugs all the time because I'm like I'm constantly fidgeting. I'm like an ADD person. So if I take an Adderall, like I relax and I'm like normal, but everybody thinks I'm on drugs all the time. A day 3 or 4 of a fast, I'm relaxed and I can do a rosary without like driving myself crazy.
Interesting.
Much less fidgety. Because I'm like a crackhead normally. I'm just like I'm like a meth head or something. Just that's my normal disposition.
Well, you have a gift.
My brain functions like that, and my body kind of falls in line with it. My brain is very like cracked out, drawing connections between things and seeing pattern matching and seeing similarities that other people don't between apparently alien things. So that kind of like like a cat following a toy or something. It's kind of like how that's my experience of how my brain functions. And so I think my body just kind of like mimics it. So I have like very nervous energy and I'm very fidgety. But day 3-4, I'm in the perfect place for prayer because I have all my faculties intact. I'm not like hopped up on anything, but I feel elated, let's say. But I find that the squirming in my chair stops a lot,
So these monks and monasteries have this tradition of fasting till the 9th hour of Jesus Christ, because that's when he died at 3 p.m. It's called the 9th hour. And so they fast with Christ because he didn't get to eat or drink till that time either. And they also fast before communion every day. And we do
that.
What's so interesting about this practice, and it's an ancient one, is that when you intermittent fast this way, in other words, you're only eating, 4 to 8 hours a day, any mammalian species that does that every day of their life lives 30 to 40% longer, period. Like an
old Catholic granny. It's funny, your most religious men live like everybody who goes to Catholic mass. Because they it's like the same habits.
But isn't that an interesting alignment of the spiritual and the physical, where like from a spiritual axiom of
for sure
struggling with Christ, there's a physical return on investment. That's an incredible resonation between God's creation and God's commandment.
You might be the most soul crushing person I've ever met. You are talking about something sacred and you use the expression return on investment. It's so awful. It's like I'm shown up to hear about God, and what I've got instead is a used car salesman telling me about parameters and return on investment. You're like a vacuum for the joy of the incarnation. It's gone.
You know what?
It's gone.
I agree that we cannot reduce these things into components. I 100% agree.
It's your medical training. You see,
it's my medical training.
You're thinking about everything in terms of you're bringing systems theory to everything, and it makes everything sound dead and boring, and because it is, and you end up your spiritual life ends up sounding like an anatomical lecture.
It's actually one of the most common questions I get every time I talk to someone about fasting in this manner, which is like, hey, why are we doing this if we're just doing it for the wrong reasons? My first call to their bluff, because everyone has their poker cards up, is to say, when was the last time you fasted? And of course, in your case, you're telling me you do it regularly. But what I will say,
nobody ever really has. Nobody really does.
I would much rather have a person, just like the doubting Thomas, put his hands into Christ's side and eventually believe, than to say, you know what, I'm never going to believe, because if I have to believe, then I have to put my hands in Christ's side, and then I'm not really believing, and then I suck. And then I'm just going to suck no matter what. What I would rather them do is to say, hey, I'm a sinner, I'm humble, I need to go in there, put my hands in his side, I believe now, and then they take the higher path. My point of with fasting is exactly that, which is that if you're not fasting, and if I can convince you of some normal, practical things that I didn't design, but God did, well, we're just appreciating his creation. It's not me trying to minimize what he's done. I'm trying to glorify it. I'm trying to make it seem as if there's like this incredible mystery.
You've constructed an amazingly elaborate compliment for yourself by basically saying the way you like to live is backed by the bank of God, and so you're incredible, and astonishing.
But it's not my practice. It's
an astonishing triumph. An astonishing triumph of human reason. You have managed to make what you happen to like a sovereign currency backed by the Bank of God. Well done.
Well, that would be true. That would be true if it wasn't found in the mysteries of the monasteries and in a 2,000-year-old tradition.
I think the way I live is much more normal. If you look back at saints that I'm sure many of whom we share,
Sure.
wasn't it? Was it Aquinas or was it Augustine? I think it was Augustine. They had to cut out some of the refectory table because he was so fat, or he couldn't pull up to supper with the other members of the. So I don't think there's ever been a skinny genius. I don't. I think G.K. Chesterton. I'm talking about great men of faith, a religion. There's there's painters on crack, but I'm talking about like the true religion. Like, I mean, a Balzac was massive. What's his name? Van Gogh died fat. Dali died fat. Picasso died fat. I don't think there's ever really been.
Well, everyone has their sins, Milo.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think there's been an intergenerational genius who's been in shape. I think that being overweight is the right and proper state for those of us who are
Milo,
called to.
Are so contrarian and hilarious. I love it. I absolutely love it. That's just fine.
Those of us who are called to achievements of the intellect instead of achievements of the body. I think we're supposed to be big. I do. I think we're supposed to be big. So I'm embracing my Greek heritage. Look at this. Look at this. It's wonderful.
God.
Yeah.
There are ascetics in the wilderness who lived over well into their hundreds that were very spiritual men that the world will never know.
And they'd be happier if they'd been fat. And if they'd been fat, they might have lived long enough to write their shit down. And if they'd done that, we might know more about them. Maybe they would, if they'd had a bit more insulation. Maybe they'd have made it through that last winter, and maybe they would have left us something instead of taking their secrets and their mysteries with them to the grave. Which, if you don't mind me saying, is just the kind of typically selfish thing that thin people do.
Oh, so I'll say this: I don't think Christians are Gnostics. We don't hate the body. We actually believe that in the resurrection, it's the soul and the body that are resurrected. And why is that?
That's why we have to keep it nice.
Yes.
In the sense of not getting tattoos and piercings and not putting it up other men's bottoms, and various things like that.
And fasting. I mean, I'll just say this. How is it that we can, in our 21st century society, leave 100 million people in America with diabetes or pre-diabetes? People leaving their families.
Those are the geniuses.
In their 50s, in their 50s, where they don't have children, their children are fatherless or their grandparents died at a young age. All of this, to my mind, is one of the reasons why, if man just took this simple commandment of fasting seriously, 80 to 90% of all disease would be eliminated. They would live long enough to see their great grandkids. And
I think it's the only reason I'm alive. There's a
do you know that even one 7-day fast reduces your cancer risk by like umpteen%? You might as well be living forever, Milo. Your goal of living to a young age is not going to happen.
I might live forever because although I treat myself terribly 3 weeks a month, I do 7 days fasting, and I therefore emerge a superhero once a month.
Do you really do that once a month? That's really what you do every month.
Realistically, probably every 6 weeks. But yes, but I emerge a superhero from these periods. You see,
I believe it. I believe it.
5 years younger every time. Next time you see me, I'm going to look like a small boy because I take so many years off by fasting.
It's the growth hormone. It's the growth hormone.
Yes, exactly.
Let the doctor break it down for you. You're not even. It's. I'm just telling you all the physiology.
No, I know the physiology. I'm talking of it because I can't bear how you express yourself. So I just know I'm just worried that you're going to stumble onto a subject I care about, and you're going to bring your it's like if
practices.
No, it's like if Tony Robbins. If Tony Robbins was asked to explain the eternal mysteries of the universe, this sort of like multi-level marketing kind of used car salesman, sort of, I can't bear it.
I understand your point.
It's all doctors talk like this, and it's a systems thinking thing. But no, I think there's a I think it was Nancy Mitford, or one of the Mitford sisters, who scolded Evelyn Waugh for being a bad dinner party guest. And she said, "Aren't you supposed to be a Catholic?" And he said something along the lines of, "If I were not a Catholic, do you have any idea how much worse I'd be?" And so, imagine if I were not a Catholic. And I feel very much as though my periods of clean living are the only reason I'm still alive, and are absolutely necessary to my physical survival, and to my spiritual survival. Because I think I run, if I can put it like this, like I run really hot, like I'm an overclocked person. Like my brain is always racing. I'm never sleeping. Also, if I didn't have those periods, I think I just burn out and just like snap and go crazy, or just my body would just like give up, because I'm on all the time. Doesn't never stops. I'm just like I run really hot.
Milo, you have gifts. You have extraordinary gifts, and with those come curses, and I think that's very natural.
They're all curses. And charisma, of course, being a Greek word.
You have it.
Well, it's always it is supposed to be that magnetic quality that draws others to you, bends them to your will, that's not how they say it in the dictionary, but makes them feel makes them favorable towards you, and the purpose of it is supposed to be so that you can lift up their eyes from you to God. Charisma is supposed to be used for evangelization, and so having lived a very bad and disreputable, reprehensible life for 40 years, as much of the next 40 as our Lord makes me live out here, I'm trying to do things with my curses that make other people's lives better, not worse, and which lift up their souls to heaven. So I'm doing a lot of work with people who come from similar sexual backgrounds, lifestyles that I did, and sort of getting them out of it, hoping to get enough brownie points to scrape my way into heaven. But I feel very keenly that my sanity is such as it is only really here because of fasting, because of those coming back to peace and center and prayerful kind of like quietness.